Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting history. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Alright, this is Mr. Jamie. And it says, come and have a splashing time, which is a great description, by the way. Very informative. But Jamie does a lot of bike rides, and there's some coins. My brain went blank there. And some panning. Great supporter, so check him out. Like, share, comment, have a good day. Okay. Well, I should start with myself. We are, for those of you who aren't aware, in the countdown to Oktoberfest, which is coming up in October, where we'll be doing the lives in the evening. Random lives, which we're still trying to figure out what we're doing, but basically you can see all four of us together as a family being weird as usual. Nothing, well, kind of special, I guess. Nothing unusual, though. But before that, we got two videos, counting this one. Joe's rambling about missiles and war, and I don't remember the rest. But before that, we got a shout-out. Ready? Here we go. Shout-out time. Here's a shout-out just for you. You support me, so I support you. This shout-out is for our friend. Let's see who it is today. I've picked Emoji Racing. There we go. And off the emojis go. I see Tour, I see Sean, I see Lovers, and Tessa, and Blistering, and Spirit, and Papas. Lucky Cat, Melinda, Kenny and Debbie, Wit, you're in there twice, I'll have to fix that. Bluegrass, Nori, Just Doing, Kaz. Papas is currently in the lead. It looks like he's whistling, maybe? I'm not very good at emojis. There's Freckled. There's Misha. And Hillbilly. And NY Queen. And there's Mimi. And She Stole. And there's Verna and Goat. And Lashes. And, oh, it's blistering today. Alright, Mr. Ben, what are you going to tell us?
I have an interesting little tidbit from history. Go back to 1983, when yours truly was only 10 years old. Now, about that time, the U.S. and the USSR were, at loggerheads with each other, because each of us had nukes we could throw at each other, and neither side really trusted each other. In fact, they even had an episode where a Korean airline flight, ironically, 007, was shot down by the Soviet military. But the key thing that happened that year involved a fellow named Stanislav Petrov. Now, Stanislav was a soldier in the Soviet Union military, born in 1939 to a Russian family in Vladivostok. His father, Vergrov, flew fighter aircraft during World War II, and his mother was a nurse. Well, he enrolled at the Kiev Military Aviation Engineering Academy of the Soviet Air Forces, and after graduating in 1972, he joined the Soviet Air Defense Forces. In the early 1970s, he was assigned to the organization that oversaw the new early warning system intended to detect ballistic missile attacks from NATO countries. This is kind of like what we had with the distant early warning system in northern Canada and Alaska. Petrov was married to Raisa, and they had a son, Dmitry, and a daughter, Yelena. Sadly, his wife passed away in 1997. Well, the event that basically pushed his name into the Hall of Fame, if you will, for the records, happened on the 26th of September 1983 during the Cold War. Their Soviet nuclear early warning system, OKO, reported the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile with 4 more missiles behind it from the U.S. Now, Petrov, suspecting a false alarm, decided to wait for confirmation that never came. According to the permanent mission of the Russian Federation to the UN, nuclear retaliation requires that multiple sources confirm an attack. In this case, the incident exposed a serious flaw at the Soviet early warning system. Petrov had said that he was neither rewarded nor punished for his actions. Now, had Petrov reported incoming American missiles, his superiors might have launched an assault against the U.S., precipitating a corresponding nuclear response from the U.S. Congratulations, class, everybody gets nuked.
What?
Petrov declared the system's indication was a false alarm. Later, it was apparent that he was right. No missiles approaching, and the computer detection system was malfunctioning. It was subsequently determined that the false alarm, get this, was created by a rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds above North Dakota, and the Molniya orbits of the satellites, an error later corrected by cross-referencing a geostationary satellite. Well, Petrov later indicated that the influences on his decision included that he had been told that a U.S. strike would be all out. So 5 missiles seemed a little illogical of a start for world propagation.
And that seems like a perfect start.
Yeah. And that the launch detection system was new and, in his view, not wholly trustworthy. That message passed quickly through 30 layers of verification too quickly, and the ground radar failed to pick up corroborating evidence, even after minutes delay. However, in a 2013 interview, Petrov said at the time he was never sure that the alarm was erroneous. He felt that the civilian training helped him make the right decision. He said that his colleagues were all professional soldiers and purely military training, and following instructions would have reported a missile launch if they had been on his shift. Now, Petrov underwent intense questioning by his superiors about his judgment. Initially, he was praised for his decision. General Yuri Vointisev, then commander of the Soviet Air Force's missile defense units, was the first to hear of Petrov's report on the incident and the first to reveal it to the public in the 1990s. States that Petrov's correct actions were duly noted. Petrov himself states that he was initially praised by Vointisev and promised a reward, but recalls that he was also reprimanded for improper filing of paperwork because he had not described the incident in the war diary. He received no reward, according to Petrov. This was because the incident and other bugs found in the missile detection system embarrassed his superiors and the scientists who were responsible for it, so that if they had been officially rewarded, they would have had to have been punished. He was reassigned to a less sensitive post, took early retirement, although he emphasized that he was not forced out of the Army, and suffered a nervous breakdown. In a later interview, Petrov stated that the famous red button was never made operational, as military psychologists did not want to put the decision about a nuclear war in the hands of one single person. When we were looking at the missile sites, that was one of the key factors, is that for any of the missiles to launch, it took 2 keys. And they had to be operated by 2 different people because there was no physical way you could Stretch, even if you were part of the Fantastic Four.
I don't know. Stretch might be able to make it again.
Might have been creative, but he had also been very ticklish at the time. But
that video still come in.
Yes. The incident became known publicly in 1998. Great. Let's sit on this secret for 15 years, guys. We don't want to admit we screwed up.
They're very good at sitting on secrets, and who wants to admit that they messed up?
Hi, I blew it. Hi.
I made a boo-boo.
No. On publication of Vointisev's memoirs, widespread media reports since then has increased public awareness of Petrov's actions. Now, there is some confusion as to precisely what Petrov's military role was in this incident. Petrov, as an individual, wasn't in the position where he could have single-handedly launched any of the Soviet missile arsenal. His sole duty was to monitor the satellite surveillance equipment and report missile attack warnings up the chain of command. Basically, this chair talks to this chair talks to this chair, and so on and so forth. Top Soviet leadership would have decided whether to launch a retaliatory attack against the West, but Petrov's role was crucial in providing information to make the decision. According to Bruce G. Blair, a Cold War nuclear strategist, expert and nuclear disarmament advocate, formerly with the Center of Defense Information, the top leadership, given only a couple of minutes to decide, told that an attack had been launched, would have made a decision to retaliate. In contrast, nuclear security scholar Pavel Podvig argues that while Petrov did the right thing, there were at least 3 assessment and decision-making layers above the command center of the Army that operated the satellites, so that Petrov's report would not have directly led to a nuclear launch. In addition, he states that even if the U.S. strike was deemed to be real, the USSR would only have commenced its own strike after actual nuclear explosions on its territory, we hope. Petrov later said, I had obviously never imagined that I would ever face that situation. It was the first, and as far as I know, also the last time that such a thing had happened, except for the simulated practice scenarios. Now, later on in his career, in the aftermath of the incident, the Soviet government investigated the incident and determined that Petrov had insufficiently documented his actions during the crisis. He explained that because I had a phone in one hand and the intercom in the other, I don't have a third hand. Nevertheless, Petrov received a reprimand. What's he supposed to write with his teeth?
Yes.
In 1984, Petrov left the military and got a job at the research institute that had developed the Soviet Union's early warning system. He later retired so that he could care for his wife after she was diagnosed with cancer. A BBC report in 1998 stated that Petrov had suffered a mental breakdown and quoted him as saying, "I was made a scapegoat." This is pretty normal. During a visit to the United States for the filming of the documentary, The Man Who Saved the World. Fun fact, Petrov toured in in 2007 the Minuteman Missile National Historic Site in South Dakota.
Oops.
And having retired from the USSR military, commented he never would have imagined being able to visit one of the enemy's securest sites.
Very true.
Petrov sadly died on the 19th of May, 2017, from hypostatic pneumonia, though it was not widely reported until September. He was only 77 years old. During his career in 2004, the San Francisco-based Association of World Citizens gave Petrov its World Citizen Award, along with the trophy and $1,000 in recognition for the part he played in averting a catastrophe. In January of 2006, Petrov traveled to the United States, where he was honored in a meeting at the United Nations in New York City. There was the Association of World Citizens presented Petrov with a second Special World Citizen Award. The next day, Petrov met with American journalist Walter Cronkite at his CBS office in New York City. In the effective altruism movement, the 26th of September is commemorated as Petrov Day. The interview, in addition with other highlights of Petrov's trip to the United States, was filmed for The Man Who Saved the World, a narrative featured the documentary film directed by Peter Anthony of Denmark. It premiered in October 2014 at the Woodstock Film Festival in Woodstock, New York, winning honorable mention, Audience Award winner for Best Narrative Feature, and honorable mention, James Lyons Award for the Best Editing of a Narrative Feature. And for his actions in averting a potential nuclear war in 1983, Petrov was awarded the Dresden Peace Prize in Dresden in Germany on the 17th of February 2013. The award included 25,000 marks, and on the 24th of February 2012, he was given the 2011 German Media Award presented to him in a ceremony at Baden-Baden, Germany. I do believe that was a euro, not a mark. I think they're up to euros by then. On the 26th of September 2018, he was posthumously honored in New York with a $50,000 Future of Life Award in a ceremony at the National Museum of Mathematics in New York. Former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, "It is hard to imagine anything more devastating for humanity than all-out nuclear war between Russia and the United States. Yet, this might have occurred by accident on September 26, 1983, were it not for the wise decisions of Stanislav Yurgevich Petrov. For this, he deserves humanity's profound gratitude. Let us resolve to work together to realize a world free from the fear of nuclear weapons, remembering the courageous judgment of Stanislav Petrov. As Petrov had died, the award was collected by his daughter, Elena. Petrov's son, Dmitry, missed his flight to New York because the U.S. Embassy delayed his visa.
Oops.
On the same day that Petrov was first honored by the United Nations in New York City, the permanent mission of the Russian Federation to the United Nations issued a press release contending that a single person could not have started or prevented a nuclear war, stating in part, under no circumstances a decision to use nuclear weapons could be made or even considered in the Soviet Union or in the United States on the basis of data from a single source of the system. For this to happen, a confirmation is necessary from several systems, ground-based radars, early warning systems, intelligence reports, etc. But again, Nuclear Secretary expert Bruce G. Blair has said that at that time the U.S.-Soviet relationship had deteriorated to the point where the Soviet Union as a system, not just the Kremlin, not just Andropov, not just the KGB, but as a system, was geared to expect and attack and retaliate very quickly to it. It was on the hair-trigger alert. It was a very nervous and prone to mistakes and accidents. The false alarm that happened on Petrov's watch could not have come at a more dangerous, intense phase of the U.S.-Soviet relations. At that time, according to Oleg Kalugin, a former KGB chief of foreign counterintelligence, said danger was the Soviet leadership thinking the Americans may attack, so we better attack first.
Right.
Petrov said he did not know whether he should have regarded himself as a hero for what he did that day. In an interview for the film, The Man Who Saved the World, Petrov says, all that happened didn't matter to me, it was my job. I was simply doing my job, and I was the right person at the right time, that's all. My late wife for 10 years knew nothing about it. So what did you do? She asked me. Nothing. I did nothing. The story of the nuclear incident is portrayed in the novel La Redención de Camarada Petrov by Argentinian writer Eduardo Sugilia. Now, last tidbit that I do remember a detail in history. Back when we were originally working with satellites and tracking systems here in the U.S., there was an incident that our forces suddenly picked up just this widespread of missiles. And it really started freaking a few of the people out. They're like, oh, this is it. It's actually going to happen. Well, two things dawned on them that pretty much diffused the situation rather quickly. First of all, they never detected a ground launch, which would be physically impossible unless they were being launched from space. At that time, that wasn't in the picture. Secondly, for the number of missiles to have launched and suddenly appeared, again, it was like, there's no way this could... Turns out, kind of like what happened with these guys, our tracking and interdiction system was so good, we didn't pick up a missile. We picked up the moon.
Whoops.
And because of the way the mileage stacked on what we were looking for, the reason why it appeared to so many missiles is because the computer looped the memory 3 times for the distance to pick up what we were looking at. So, needless to say, we had no chance of getting hit by the moon. But likely, there was no chance that those were Soviet missiles. And so we were able to kind of diffuse the situation with, reality. But we do want to thank Petrov for his, contribution saving everybody's life in 1983. That year we got to see Don Mattingly start for the Yankees, beginning of his career. Got to see the Los Angeles Raiders have an excellent season that finished in the Super Bowl. And you know, it was the year before we had the Olympics there in L.A. But Petrov, we got to thank it because we all didn't wind up turning radioactive. But
Toast.
Close. But this has been the Bearded Historian. This is Sue.
No.
No? Okay, Sue is not here. This is a ghost. But you folks have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.